Hi everyone. I very often felt like a black sheep in the family because I come from a family of artists. My father was a sculptor, mother a painter, older brother a painter. So they all finished the Academy of Fine Arts. I finished economics. They never worked in a for-profit organization, and most of them never had working hours, and I work in a bank. So usually people ask me, but how come? How come you don't do art? And therefore, being in a conference which is called Art of HR makes me, really happy that I can say, okay, something I love and that I feel that is my purpose is called art. So what I'll tell you about is what do we do in CEE, Central and Eastern Europe Division of UniCredit Group, to grow international leaders. UniCredit is a group of over 140,000 employees. And in CE, we have around 48,000 employees, 30 million customers, 4 billion in revenues. And in this network of 48,000 people, we want to make sure that the division is the one that facilitates, the cross-fertilization and the growth. So one thing that we wanted to do is we have a very structured succession process, but we wanted to make sure that it uses the benefits that we have, banks in many countries, and to help grow leaders who have a wider international profile. So the general governance of the group in UniCredit is that we leave a lot of space to banks locally in the countries to lead the business. So not to have a very strong top-down directive approach. However, to make sure that on some processes, which we find very, very important, we have complete alignment. And that we make sure that we are not, as governance, imposing just some controlling mechanisms, but that we help and enable countries to do a better job with our help than what they would do alone. So one of the key processes that we have completely aligned is the way that we plan succession and the way that we grow leaders. So one of the things that we have done after having introduced the overall group process is that for CE division, we wanted to have some kind of common set of criteria that tells us how ready the leaders are for new jobs. And what we have done is we have defined 6 elements. First 2 elements, which are common for all of the people that we evaluate as possible successors, is that they need to have international experience and cross-functional experience before they take top positions in the countries in the first line. Why? Because we have seen, looking at the profiles of some of the best leaders that we have, that the ones who did have such kind of cross experiences were much better in understanding the group, connecting different areas of the group, and creating value. So this is one set of criteria. The other 3 are a little bit more specific about risk management, about how do we cooperate and create synergies, and about people development. And every business area defines a last set of criteria which is very specific for that business. And what we do using this criteria is that when we map all of the successors based on these 6 elements, for each successor, we have an indication of readiness, green, yellow, or red, in terms of having these criteria. And if person is green, the person is ready to move immediately. If the person is evaluated as yellow, that means that some of the elements need to be developed, and our role is to accelerate the development of that element. And if the person is in red, then we have a bit more work to do. But all of these people are people with recognized strong potential. Another thing that we have done is, to also facilitate these cross movements, which are not always easy to do, We have knowing how our business leaders, especially CEOs and deputy CEOs in the banks, how they are driven by KPIs. We have introduced one number that tells how good they are in doing cross moves. So we introduced a very simple set of scoring rules that for every move, depending on the seniority, a country can gain points. And then what we do is we show the points. So we give league tables to all of the countries, and they know where each country is compared to the others. And we get a lot of insight into, are we in the risk management area good and doing cross-functional movements? And if in some countries not, we understand in which countries we are good at doing that, and then we connect the CROs to exchange experiences and to facilitate it. We also understand in which areas we are doing the movements more in junior levels, where in more senior levels, and how and why does it work. We also understand very well in terms of gender, in which levels women are moving more, in which less, and then we have more data to see how to facilitate the movements. Another thing is that we also, when we do the structured succession process, one thing that we have always each year in February, once we have done, the first round of evaluation, in Vienna, in our offices, we can do this kind of picture where for all of the countries and the major business positions, we exactly know what is the situation in succession. But this is just a sum of local views. But then when we thought of person who is currently in one country and readiness of that person to cover positions in several other countries, so when we take the view of the division, the picture completely changes. So in terms of successors, we have many more and the situation is much better. But the problem was that this was only the view that we had in Vienna that wasn't shared. So what we decided to do is to introduce one thing, and that is the cross-country succession pool. So we have looked early this year into all the historical data to know how many usually positions we have open in a period of 12 to 18 months. And we know that in those key positions we have around 20% of openings because people are changing across the division and within the group. And on the other hand, we have looked into the successors. Who of the successors and of the best people are ready to move in the next 12 to 18 months? Because if we have a very great, strong successor who has just taken on a new responsibility, for sure we will not put them in the pool now. It's not the right time. So based on one hand, on the turnover that we know that we have, and on the needs of the people, we have defined, okay, what is the right size of the pool to start with? And we said we are going to go with roughly up to 40 people that we are going to put in the pool for the needs that we have. Then another thing that was crucial is that up to March this year, we were never open saying to the people that they are considered as successors for certain jobs. And we were not open saying to the CEOs of one local bank that 3 of the people in their teams are considered as candidates for positions in other banks. So what used to happen earlier on is that when there would be an opening, the country would have a local candidate. The division would come with suggestion of some other international candidates. And there was always a little bit of defensiveness from the local point of view, because if the division offers me an international candidate, that means that they might not trust that the local candidate is good enough. And we needed to deal with that. So what we have done is we have in the country sessions that we usually have, we've had a discussion about the topic. We shared openly with the countries for which people we think are good and anyhow need to increase their readiness an international move. And we asked the countries to tell us, okay, which of those would they also support to be in the pool and to have the visibility? And so we have aligned on the people who to put in. What was important is that for countries, we needed to work on the fact that everybody needs to understand what's in it for them. So for the countries, what they get is an opportunity for their people to grow more quickly, so not only depending on local openings, because very often you have people who are ready to take on a more senior job, but the job is taken. So if we have a job somewhere else and a person can develop there and then come back home to a senior position, this is a very good combination. And on the other hand, they are not so much, we explain the value that they shouldn't be afraid of letting their people go, because people from the pool from other countries will be there strong enough to take positions in their country. Then also we needed to explain what's in it for the people, for the ones that we put in the pool. And for them, what we have promised is very high visibility. We have promised that they will be, the first ones that we look into whenever we have an opening coming up. And we said very clearly, the fact that you are in the pool is no promise that in, that number of months you will certainly get promoted. But you are increasing a lot your chances to be considered and to be chosen. And what we have done in terms of visibility for the 36 people, one of the practices, one of the meetings that we have regularly at the division level is every 3 months we have CEOs and deputy CEOs of all of the banks coming together. And we have decided, as this happens 4 times during the year, that every time we have them coming together, we will take one portion of the pool, we will take the people and bring them into this meeting. And what we have asked each person to do is to make a pitch, a sales pitch in 5 minutes, where they have to, present who they are to the CEOs and deputy CEOs, because we wanted also the CEOs and deputy CEOs to have a real, personal experience with those people. And after those pitches, we would have another day of the meetings where the people from the pool would fully participate as with the same voice as the CEOs in all of the discussions, in all of parts of the meeting. And they would have a chance to network and to get directly in touch with the CEOs. And what was the benefit of it? That then whenever we have an opening, and when the CEO in local country gets a list of possible candidates, usually at least 3 out of 4 candidates the CEO has seen and has formed also an opinion about them and had a chance already to talk with. So the process of selection is going much more quickly. And we have started in March with these pitches, and since then we have 11 people from the pool in new positions in different countries, and 64% of the total pool have been at least in one selection process. By the end of the year, we will have 15 or 16 appointments, so which is almost half of the pool. Another thing which we discovered is also the benefit that, the people, we asked them to do this pitch, and we asked them not to be presenting just their CV. I started my career in this job, then I did that job, then another. But we have asked them to find a way to convey who they are, what they stand for. And what they have been telling us is we would always make a debrief with them after the experience, and they told us that the preparation for doing this pitch was extremely valuable for them, because they really needed to think of themselves not as a chief risk officer, not as head of retail, because they did not pitch from a position. They needed to pitch who they were. And they said that it was extremely useful to, define which of the values I want to convey, what do I want others to remember me by. And in these meetings, when we had pitches, we had also the head of the division and some other CEOs saying that during some pitches they would have goosebumps from the emotion that was conveyed and the authenticity that was conveyed by the people. And every time after those pitches, I would have some of the CEOs coming to me saying, you know, Laura, if you asked me to do the pitch, ooh, it would be difficult, you know. I'm thinking, okay, maybe you should ask us to do it as well, and, you know, to try to also convey who we are. So far we are very happy with how the process is going on, and what we are considering is how to go further also in the lower levels of our leadership pipeline with a very open and transparent approach. Another thing that is a benefit of our approach is that, as I said earlier on, in the group we don't have a very tight governance that everything needs to be developed top-down. So at the holding level, they are appreciating the approach and the results that we have from it. And from the next cycle, the approach of this pool is going to be then implemented in also other areas of UniCredit Group, in Italy, in Germany, and in other countries. So, thank you.